This is Fraud to Fearless,
where we inspire dreamers to overcome imposter syndrome, embrace their authentic selves, and learn how to harness your brand to build a path to success.
I'm Brooke.
And I'm Hayden, and we're your hosts.
Welcome to the show.
Okay, Sharon, you talked about earlier on mentors. You talked about, sounds like your dad was a great
100%.
example and mentor, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how mentors, however you want to take it, have played a significant role in your career and how they have helped you give an example of how to overcome this imposter syndrome and self-doubt.
Okay, I used to do a brief presentation on career aspirations. And our graphic designer had this amazing concept where in the neck of mine was all faces and people. Those are the mentors in life, right? Those are the people that, to me, it's this amazing cast of people from my parents to my husband to my kids. Mentors come in all sorts of strange forms and places. And I think I'm gonna go back. My mom has always done things behind the scenes, quiet. So it taught me it's okay to not be in the limelight like my dad. Sometimes the best thing you can do is be that quiet person that contributes. My husband, unlike me, who is like this all the time, he's calm as a cucumber. He's a mentor for that. So I think that there are mentors. One of the experiences I tell people about is I went to this, it was all the HR people from across Kimberly-Clark, and we were learning how to do business process mapping. We get in a room and there are literally schematics across the room, and I am pooping bricks, right? I mean, I'm looking and I'm going, this is so out of my wheelhouse that I have already created like heart palpitations, heavy breathing. By the time we're at first break, I'm outside talking to this guy in tears because I can't do this. I can't do this. I won't be able to do it. And this is a chief mentor, right? He says, what evidence do you have? What have you set out to do that you have not done? And you kind of go, well, they've got a point. I kind of stick with stuff, right? So he talked me off the edge. I went back in there, and this is one that I'm kind of proud of myself because it ended up that I ended up volunteering to do business process mapping, which led to international travel, which led to relationships and experiences I would no more have had than the man on the moon. And I think it was the baby bird. Hayden, I jumped from the tallest tree and jumped out on that one because I was terrified because I didn't think I could do that. But a mentor, which was all shapes and sizes in those informal moments, not a big, oh my gosh, fancy thing. It just was very ad hoc. And that's the thing, too, that I worry we make mentors harder than it needs to be. Mentors can be in a moment. And maybe that's not a true definition of a mentor, but they help us to see things differently. Or I have a mentor who was, for a very long time, somebody that I trusted greatly to say, help me know how to do this. But I consider the team that I work with mentors. Oftentimes, if we're facing a big initiative, we'll talk about it together. And I learn so much from people that didn't live the same life I live or just got out of grad school and think about things. So don't underestimate mentors from different places would be a big Sharon Giles thought.
Some of our good friends just bought a new car yesterday. And you ever, when you buy a new car, you drive down the street and you're like, oh, there's another Mazda CX-9. Oh, there's another Mazda CX-9. What the Mazda CX-9s haven't increased. It's just you've noticed them. And So I love what you said about the mentor thing, and it doesn't have to be super formal with like this well-written corporate lingo, email introduction, and you meet at bi-weekly for 30 minutes. But you got to seek it. It's like playing hide and seek. If you don't look, then there's nothing to find. So this idea of noticing the cars that are on the road, if you just look for folks that are trying to mentor and give you that feedback, even if it may be hard to hear sometimes, I think you'll appreciate a lot more the value and notice that you actually do have a lot of people that care about you and love
Oh.
you and want you to succeed. You just got to look for them.
And they don't have to look like us.
Yep.
I mean, they do not have to look like us. And that I understand there's an element of, as a woman, maybe I may migrate to women, or as a Hispanic person, I may, and that's great. There's a time and a place for all of that. But oftentimes, I will tell you, some of my best mentors, my current boss is younger. We don't look a thing alike. I learn from that man every single moment of every single day. He's a principles-driven person. And I think there's just amazing life lessons to be gleaned there. I totally agree. The car thing is super.
I'm sitting here and thinking this has been a mindset shift for me, because usually when I think of mentors, I think, okay, this person, they've done this kind of thing. And I think there's value in that. But what I'm learning from you, Sharon, is I might meet somebody at the grocery store in the line.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm like, wow, they could be teaching me. What are they teaching me? What can I learn?
Yes.
That up levels your life.
Isn't
If you
it
can
cool?
see everybody, you've changed me. I'm changed. This
There
is
you go.
powerful.
Brooke, I seriously believe that. I mean, I do think a person in a grocery store, a person that you check out at Costco and they say, thank you for smiling at me today. And I think, holy cow, stuff like that, you just go, I'm going to use that line. I know how it made me feel. It comes back to your brand thing. How does it land on you? What legacy? All those kinds of things. I love what you two are doing here, because these are not abnormal things or feelings, but it's how do we deal with them in a way that is constructive and not destructive.
That's great. Sharon, what I'd like to get your thoughts on is, we've talked a lot about you as an employee, you as an individual navigating this fraud feeling, this imposter syndrome, overcoming self-doubt. We've talked about mentors and how a mentor can be anyone. I love that. Talk to us about, as a leader, how has this dynamic influenced you being a mentor to other folks and helping them get out of their way when it comes to this fraud feeling, but then also thinking about, as an organization, we want to provide a culture where growth mindset, right? How have you thought about that from a leader perspective?
I think about it all the time. And I think part of it is being that leader that pushes the baby birds out of the nest, but also being the leader that says, before I do that, what have I done to make the baby bird feel safe? What have I done to prepare the baby bird to do that? And I try really hard to make sure people that work for me get exposure. So if there are opportunities for them to lead projects, to present to key people, to have their voice heard, I think it is my responsibility to make sure that they are thrust in those situations. This year, one of the things we did is we went through our initiatives, and in addition to the initiatives to help the organization, it was who's going to be a subject matter expert. So in HR, I feel like we need change management experts. We need people who are good at policies. We need people who are good at project management. So deliberately, we've sort of looked, and there are people who have an affinity for certain things, and you can almost see their future and go, this will serve them well. How can they get that skill, which is going to be a little bit more leading edge and may catapult their career just a little further by them having that, and then teaching our team. And so I think as a leader, I cannot fathom people not embracing that opportunity to help the organization, those individuals. But in helping them, we really are helping everyone, right? I mean, we grow and it's so much better. Our HR team meets periodically to kind of talk through things that we've run into, whether it's somebody didn't get a promotion, how did we handle it? And I think I can safely say we all learn from each other because we approach it differently. We approach it genuinely from who we are, but it also means that there are things Hayden or Brooke might do that I go, that wouldn't be necessarily natural for me, but man, it sure would work better for this employee. So you kind of take that on and go, okay, that also helps us be cohesive as a team. So it's not quite you still get an individual because we like that, but you also feel like it's kind of a common voice that can guide a culture in a certain way that is true to development and growth and believing in our staff. I like it when people tell me at our organization they're not a butt in a chair. They're a real human. They're looked at as humans. Does everybody feel that way? Unfortunately, probably not. But I do think the vast majority do. And I think that was embedded long before I ever got there. But I think we have done some good things to keep it along the way.
As maybe some of our listeners are transitioning from an individual contributor into this leadership role, this idea of how do you create safety and fear, with growth, the fear that's required to grow, being able to create a incubator of safety is the key to stepping into this fearless piece. What are your tips and tricks to creating this safety piece even more?
So glad you're asking. The dry runs. It's so simple, but to me, when I was younger, there would be a dry run and I'm going to present to XYZ person. And my boss would say, okay, let's practice. Okay, Sharon, what if they ask you this? Okay, what if you do this? Maybe you'll want to rephrase. Maybe you'll want to, make sure you walk around or do tips and tricks that allowed me in a safe environment to not be terrified. And I think the 30 minutes or 60 minutes that you invest in them to prepare them, I mean, it pays dividends, right? Because then they're successful, their confidence goes up. You learn as a leader the things that you go, maybe I should have held back on that one because I crushed their spirit. I mean, that's an iterative process too, learning how to properly manage feedback with the individual to know what's going to inspire or what's going to just be devastating or whatever.
I love the investment piece, investing time in people. It's never a waste. So I'm writing down the notes and I want to try to implement that, seeing all of these things as an opportunity to create safety.
Think back to the guy that said to me, what evidence do you have that you can't do this? We get nervous. I mean, again, taking a deep breath and going, did I prepare? That's the other thing. I think as leaders, don't baby people. If it's their presentation, their project, their work, as long as you've set clear expectations, give a little guidance, give the bowling alley, put some guardrails up so that they're not just trying to boil the ocean, but they understand within these parameters. But use your head if it means going outside the lines a little bit. But as leaders, help it not feel so daunting for people to tackle things. Let them build some quick wins and some confidence things, and then they do it. I mean, I just think people respond to that, but don't expect to just throw them.
I think got to give guardrails, but then it's like play loose and let it rip. I think the other thing, and for those listening, Brooke and I, when we started this whole journey, it's kind of surreal now to have guests, like to have Sharon on our podcast. It's like, what? But I think for us, we only started doing this for the journey. There was no destination. And we're okay with that. And I think it's fun, but there's no end state. It's like, let's just move. And I think the big thing that we constantly remind each other is, Brooke, this is kind of fun, huh? If we're not having fun, let's stop, but we're having fun. And I think we all, in general, I think it's very easy to take life way too seriously.
100%.
And if everyone could just relax, reflect, work on building themselves, building their brand, navigating what they like to do, and then play loose, let it rip, and have fun, wouldn't we all be happier?
Absolutely.
And I think we had another guest speaker on, Sharon. He talked about this idea of as a people leader, being okay not being the smartest person in the room and asking the dumb questions. And I think what you are highlighting is give the guardrails and then make sure there's safety, but then let them fly. Yep. And maybe they know how to fly better than their leader, and that's okay. Yep. Let the stallion gallop,
Yep. And even asking the questions, that's what you're supposed to do. So in settings, I am the HR rep. There are certain things that come with that it's more likely I'm going to ask that question. And early in my career, I think I used to worry like, ooh, that's kind of soft, or that's touchy, or that's, do I dare ask that? And I have felt very psychologically safe throughout my career to, when in the room being the HR person, to know that they're counting on me to do that. They're not looking for me to have some brilliant accounting insight or some operational impact. And so I've been lucky because it's been okay to do that. Have either of you ever met someone who was not willing to share their story? Probably not. I think that's the other thing is I love when I learn from people about that. And I think what a great way to know that you're not alone, or to say, go to lunch with somebody. Don't be shy about spending a nickel and going and getting a coffee or something, to say, how did you get to be, this in this role, or what do you think about this? I just, people, again, this is Sharon, but generally are quite willing to engage with each other to help them and learn from them. And I don't know that we always tap into it. We get busy, and they would never do this. Don't make that decision for them. Ask them.
That brings up a great point, because I think starting out, when Hayden and I both got internships, that was the thing that they, at Utah State, they told us, talk to as many people as you can. As an intern, capitalize on it. Ask from the ground up, the C-suite, get an interview with them, ask them about their story. I think as we transition into our career, we're not interns anymore. We don't have that golden ticket kind of a feeling. It is easy to forget. Can I just reach out to whoever and say, hey, I'd love to just hear your story or learn from you. Maybe we should do another segment on this, Hayden, is how you can just genuinely connect with people and learn from them. Because you don't have to be an intern. You don't have to stop after being an intern. And in fact, it's probably even more important as you continue to grow, you have more experiences, that connection piece.
Brooke, did you ever see that? I don't remember what news, it was a national news station. And at the end of it, they would have an astronaut just randomly point on the globe to some country. And then some boots on the ground would just be in a phone book or something like that. And they would pick, and it would be like, oh, there's Bob Smith. And they'd knock, I don't know if it was staged, but I sucked right in, right? They'd knock on Bob Smith's door, and the theme was everyone's got a story. And you would learn these amazing things about this guy that's name showed up on the phone book. But I think, to your point, you learn from the person next to you at the grocery store. You learn from the person that sits and they work in a different group than you purchasing, and you learn things. There's kind of a whole bunch of things out there in the world that we just fail to take advantage of. And when we do, it's pretty cool.
I've been reflecting a lot personally on this idea of the standard. I know, Sharon, we have conflicting NFL opinions, but in college football, I'm not a Bama fan, right? So as a coach, I did not like Nick Saban. As a human being, I think he is unbelievable, and he is an amazing leader. And him now being part of this ESPN college crew, he's talked a lot about, he created a standard at Alabama, and all his job is to make sure everyone knew when they were below standard. But it's not just on the football field. It's in the classroom. It's with your relationships. And I think it's so easy to forget that you can change your standard. We get caught in these habits, and we get in these ruts, and we're like, oh, it's too hard to work out. It's too hard to spend time with people that I care about. No, I don't want to work harder in my job. It's like, you just lowered your standard. Yeah. And I've been reflecting a lot about this, and essentially a lot of what we've been talking about today, and maybe a slightly different angle, is when we think about that self-doubt and imposter syndrome, what if you can? What if give yourself some permission to dream? What if you are a great golfer? What if you ask the girl out and she says yes? giving yourself some permission to find people that help raise your standard, but you can raise your own standard yourself to a different level. I love this idea, and I think it's so easy to get lost in slowly reducing the standard until you don't even really know who you are anymore.
Hayden, I love that. And I'll tell you where it resonates with me at this stage in life. There's the, oh, I'm too old to do that. Or, no, I can't do that hard thing or whatever. And I think there's a standard that I refuse to subscribe to that says, no, wait a minute, I can still run, I can still hike, I can still do the things outdoors. And no, I'm not ready to go on a shelf or anything yet. So I think there's in that very different life stage, I love it. I love it at all life stages, but there's application.
So, with all of this background experience, wealth of knowledge, what advice would you give to someone who's listening that feels like they're one mistake away from being found out? They're afraid to take the next step in their career. They don't know if they have what it takes to move into the next season.
Take a deep breath. But I also think get to the bottom of why. So if I don't feel like I can do it, did I not prepare? Do I have a personal experience that I can learn from? Have I done everything to address the root of it? So instead of just allowing that feeling to overcome me, get to the bottom of it. And then I think engage other people. So if I'm super worried about, I might fail, then I engage somebody else to say, hey, Brooke, I'm going to do this thing. Is there anything you can think of I may have missed? What else might you suggest? Does this shirt look okay? I have a network of amazing people. How can I tug on them to allow me to get past that momentary feeling? And then after you do it, celebrate what went right in life. Do we immediately go, oh, I sounded so stupid, or why didn't I say this? Or do we go, you know what, that was kind of fun. And I really appreciated this. And just don't miss that opportunity to experience that little runner's high.
That's great. Celebrate in life. There's it's actually lyrics in a rap song, but I really love this. Life's a beach and I'm just playing in the sand. And I think sometimes when things go well, we don't take a moment to just, again, take a deep breath and enjoy it. Celebrate it.
Yeah. And I'm really a stickler for this notion of get to the bottom of it. If there's an emotion, there's a fear, then do something about it, because otherwise it will just consume you. But most of the time there is something or someone who can, that's why I said pick your partner and your friends wisely, because they're there and they're a phone call or whatever it is away from kind of doing what you need to do to process and be feeling better about it.
I think we can coin this as the Sharon framework. We'll have to go back and listen to it, but the things that you said of asking yourself why and is there something I can do about it? We're going to have to run the B-roll, but this is the Sharon framework. So good.
When she writes a New York Times bestseller, we'll have all this great footage from the podcast. Can't wait.
There we go.
All right, Sharon, I think it's been an episode full of pay dirt. So in closing here, want to give you an opportunity to reflect on what we talked about, maybe anything you learned or your top 3 takeaways from today.
Wow. Well, first off, I think this forum is really cool. So thank you both for having the vision and the courage to kind of just make this dream become a reality. And I am truly honored to be asked to participate in it, because I dig talking about this stuff. I always have. I probably always will. And so I think it's pretty fun. It was a trip down memory lane in some ways, because things that they just get buried, right? And then you talk about them and you kind of go, thank you for helping me relive some of those moments, because along with that, for every moment pictures of people flashed in my head that will carry me through the day, the weekend, if not the month, to go, man, I've been pretty fortunate, right? And I guess that would be one of my takeaways, is to say, I know every experience isn't glorious, and I know things are hard. I get it. I get it. I think with my strength theme that we have in common of positivity, I will choose to go, yeah, those things are hard, but out of them, you do pop out the other side, maybe not as perfectly as you always want to, but maybe even just doing this with our friends and being able to talk through things is a reflection for me to say, it's just a healthy exercise to do this. And there's a few thought-provoking questions that open a whole block of dialogue. I thank you both, because seriously, I will have fun reflecting on the people that have helped me be who I am today and will be tomorrow.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure. So we've talked multiple times about our Strengths Finder commonalities. So I'm just going to, check the receipts, and here are the final results. So Sharon is an achiever. All three of us, me, Brooke, and Sharon, all have achiever in our top 5. Individualization, which Sharon and I have, it's my number 1 now, the last 3 times I've taken it. Positivity, which Brooke and Sharon both have. Futuristic, which Brooke and Sharon both have. And then learner. So out of the top 5, 4 out of the 5, at least 2 of us have in common. One of them, all 3 of us have in common. And I think, Sharon, it was really cool to listen to that reflection on one. I think finding ways to talk about things like this with the people that you love, we don't do it enough. And we need to fix that. As a general people, we don't do it enough. And I think it's so important and powerful. So thank you for being part of the journey. My takeaways, I've got about 1.5 pages of notes here.
Don't steal mine, okay?
I'll try my best not to. So I really love this idea of performance, not looking to the future so closely that you forget about today. And if you conquer today, then the future will look good. So it's okay to dream. It's okay to think about the future, but this idea of let's conquer today, let's be a star today, and then tomorrow will take care of itself. I really love that idea. I think probably one of the most powerful things from today is it our identity or our reputation? And I think that, my opinion, that is the revolver of fear. Fear is that question, is we think it's our identity, but it's actually our reputation at risk. And then giving yourself permission to, what if it goes well? Let's dream. Like, why so negative? If you put a bead in a jar every time you have a thought, and yellow are positive and black is negative, what does your jar look like? Are you constantly just telling yourself that you can't do things, and then the jar is black with a couple yellow specks? No, we want the opposite. Let's dream. What if you get that job? What if you get that promotion? What if, you have something happen really well in your personal? Let's fill our jars with yellow beads. So what if it goes well, and giving yourself the courage to put yellow beads in your jar? And then I think, Sharon, your reflections, it's the individualization in us, but I was also going down memory lane when you were reflecting. And I think my takeaways of you, so prepared. So multiple times you've been looking at notes. You, I imagine, put a lot of time into this. You're very prepared. You're referencing previous episodes. To have someone at your level that has had a career that you've had, not only want to come on and be part of this podcast and journey as we're getting started, but prepare at the depth that you did. It's really an honor and very humbling for Brooke and I, and for all the listeners. And I have no doubt that everyone's going to absolutely love listening to this episode. When I think of you, my mom, when she also went back to school like you, Sharon, after some time, and single parent of 4 for a long time. But my mom, when she was in her undergrad, there was a Hall of Fame motivational speaker come to Utah State called Dan Clark. And she made me listen to it, and it changed my life. But the main takeaway that I've told Brooke a long time that when Brooke and I were in school, I would constantly tell her this idea is Dan Clark says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, which is why it's so important to go out of your way and go to great lengths to spend time with incredible human beings. Every time I think about you, that's the quote I think of, is that, as much time as I can get with Sharon, I'll take it. But I also, without you even knowing that quote, I see you doing that as well. So multiple times you've talked about surrounding yourself with amazing people. And I think that is definitely influencing part of who I am, who you are, who Brooke is. So I really love that idea. And then the last thing is, what evidence do you have that says you can't? So if you have no evidence, then move. You're going to be okay. So, and then celebrate. All right, Brooke, your takeaways.
Hayden, you're luckily he didn't take mine, but you did throw in 10 things, so that was a close one.
Hater.
I'll say this, 2 things that impacted me the most, Sharon. Number 1, this idea of mentors. I have on my notes that I'm going to create a list in my phone called mentors. And I am going to be aware of the different people that show up in my life. What are they teaching me? And taking that in, I think that's going to up-level everything in my life. If I can see everything as a learning opportunity, going back to this piece that you said at the very beginning, that it's not by chance the different places that we're in, the people that we come in contact with. And if we can truly embrace that, that's living life to me, is embracing each of those moments. So I am going to be looking for and seeing the mentors that I did not see before and maybe would have not noticed or even thought of. And then number 2, this idea of not looking across and not looking up. Truly focusing on, here's where I'm at, and this is where I'm going to build, and this is where I'm going to grow. And not necessarily put blinders up, but from a personal standpoint of saying, these are my unique gifts. I'm not going to waste one more second worrying about all of the other things. I'm going to develop this, and I am going to do the job, and the rewards will come.
It feels good, doesn't it?
So grateful for your thoughts. In Fraud to Fearless fashion, we always close out with questions. So we have a question for you, Sharon. And as Hayden mentioned in your bio, that you have this love of hiking. You've hiked the Incan Trail. So we are curious, can you give us your top 3 favorite hikes that you would recommend?
Absolutely. Okay, definitely Inca Trail's number 1. And that's because it was hard. It had history. I was with my family, and it was amazing. The sights and sounds were incredible. I actually love Lake Blanche in Salt Lake City. I think Lake Blanche is beautiful. It is, you kind of go and then it's boom, there's this body of water, and it's just like, even though you know it's coming, you're kind of tickled, and then you see it and it's cool. And then Indian Trail in Ogden, that is solely special because I do that with dear friends. And so to me, it is not so much that the trail is gorgeous. It's the company that every time I do it, I'm with the same people or some faction of those people, and it just makes my heart overflow with happy.
Home's a people, not a place. I love that.
Seriously, this was a ball. Continued success with this adventure. I think it's going to matter. It's going to matter in a big way.
Thanks, Sharon. I think this will definitely matter. I think you matter. And this was such an awesome experience. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening. For now, that's the pod.